Good morning. Hand today is going to be 9-8 of hearts. This is a 25 NL game. Just played this hand. Um, so let's review it. In the same, we have a player that limps. Then we get a min raise, and it's on me, and I chose just to call, and the limper calls. So these are going to be ranges that are going to be somewhat difficult to formulate. This guy limps and calls, and we have some information. We have a limp and call 7-2 suited and a 6-3 suited. That's pretty interesting. So, when we think about limp calls, and he's playing 70% of hands, so I mean, it's just over 70% of hands he's playing. He's not really raising a whole lot. His raise first in stats overall is 16%. Early position, mid positions. So early position 7%, mid position 20%. This could all be just decent hands. So, what I did was start out with a really wide range, 86%. Maybe he doesn't have all of these suited hands. Maybe he doesn't have all of these. But he did have 7-2 suited. So I'm just going to leave in all the suited that he limped in with. And we have to exclude all of the, his pre-flop raising range. So I picked like about 15% or so, which would be like 7 plus, the broadways. I think we could probably add these hands back and say he probably wouldn't raise those. Maybe, take out sixes. Suited aces maybe is what he's raising. And then I had a lot of these offsuits, but with he limped and then called, maybe he doesn't call them, maybe he does, but we're at 65%, and that's probably what he's playing. So super wide range. This next guy is playing 55-22, also pretty loose player. We have limp first in stat of 25% overall. He could have easily have limped. Instead, he chose to raise and make a minimum raise. So I think his hand's going to be stronger, a bit stronger. How strong? Well, I put 30% and said this could be what his range is. We could add, subtract some hands, but something like this, just kind of in the mix. And then it gets to me. Button versus cutoff. This is a 3-bet or call range. I think this is appropriate. We're against two loose players. If I raise, I don't think I'm going to isolate him. I think they're going to probably come along for the ride. So what's the point of building up a massive pot when we have a speculative hand? I think our hand's going to probably show a higher EV just by calling here and making some money post flop from all of the hands that these villains have in the range. So the idea, if I connect with a board, I probably connect, or the other players probably connect at least somewhat. That allows them to call at least on the flop and possibly on the turn. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So we see a flop of King Jack 8. So we flop bottom pair. We don't have any heart draw. We've got basically bottom pair. We do have some straight potential. I'm not sure if it's worth it to try to bet, and we do have a situation where it's check to me. So the one that really matters is this player. He was a pre-flop raiser. He chose not to bet, so I'm going to exclude sets and two pairs and over pairs, and I think even top pairs, and include all of these other weak hands. What about flush draws? I do assume the villain would have probably c-bet a flush draw and probably an open-ended straight draw. So I think we're, at least for this guy, we're looking at something like this. He's going to be fairly weak, and the question comes, what do I do? Well, you can see my range, and I'm not really going to hit very strongly with it. I do have bottom set, but that's about it. So I think what we're probably doing is just going to have to check behind. Of course, we can have a spade. We can have a spade draw, but I think our play is to check behind with basically everything that we have, even with the set. I think I just don't. I mean, if we choose to bet it for value, we're betting the set for value, and then we bet let's see, our flush draw for value. But I don't even know if we could do all of them. I just think it makes a little bit more sense just to go ahead and check everything. And see if someone else bets and like kind of try to come in for a raise. Obviously, we could bet, and maybe that's what we should do. We should bet our set. Top pair is probably a check. So yeah, okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to bet our set, we're going to bet our flush draws, and probably not all of our flush draws. I think we have Queen 9. I think it's going to be good, kind of as a gut shot with the spade draw. These are all combo draws, bottom pair. Yeah, bottom pair, we're betting those as a bluff. If they fold, that's great. We've got bottom pair and the flush draw, but if we get called, then yeah, I think ace 8 as well. And I think that's probably it. So that's gonna mean that like ace 2, ace 6, ace 7 suited, like on those flush draws, we're gonna be calling. So let's see what I do. I do check, and then I think it's appropriate. I think that's appropriate. So let's go ahead and get these checks in order. So that would be like top pair, middle pair, bottom pair, no made hand, all of those. We just need to make sure that the no made hand includes the flush draws that we want. So I think we're going to go something like that. And it does look like it. It's about 89% or 10%. All right, so we check. Turns a queen of hearts. If we were betting with our set and flush draw, this obviously connects with like 8-10. I think we would probably continue betting that. We have to be a little bit more cautious because our sets now are going to be behind like ace 10, 10-9. But yeah, I still think we're probably going for some value. I think this is a board that has a lot of value for him, has a lot of potential. This guy especially could potentially have two pair and it's going to pay us off. So that's kind of what we're targeting. But villain 6 checks. So once he checks, I'm going to eliminate this. Well, I'm going to keep this. Well, I guess we have to keep everything in here. He still has his full range. We're going to say he still has his full range. This guy, though, I think the straight he would have bet. I think a set he would have bet at this point. Two pair probably bets here. So again, for him, he's just incredibly weak, and we've got a bottom pair. So what do we do with all of our checking hand? I think we just check behind. We don't know where villain 6 is. What's the likelihood that all of them is going to fold? You know, with how it went check on the flop, you know, here, I think maybe if I bet, there's a chance that I could pick it up, but there's so many kings, queens, and jacks in both of their range that surely one of them is going to call. So I think here we are just going to be checking, and what we could possibly do is go for our value on the river. If it gets checked to us again, then we maybe try to go for some value when we have the king, or maybe when we have the queen. And I think that's what we're going to be targeting. So we basically still have our entire range too. River's 2 spades. That's going to connect with all of those ace 2, ace 3, ace 6, ace 7 of spades. So villain 6 checks. Once he checks, I'm going to exclude the flush. I kind of assume he would bet the flush to go try to get some value. Possibly even get some value from the straight. I think he's got all of these. If I bet, I can't imagine he's going to be calling with all of these. I think he's going to be folding a large percentage of the time. This guy also checked, so I mean, maybe he has a set, but I think overall it's going to be fairly weak. Question is, if I bet, you know, do I get jack, a queen, or a king to fold? Because that's who I need to fold. And with how it played out, I kind of feel like the king's going to call. So let's see what the top pair is. This guy doesn't have it, so that's okay. This guy's at 11%. So if he calls 11%, he's folding 90%. Now, if he calls with all of the top pairs, so let's see here. He would call with a set, 2 pair, top pair, middle pair, and let's get just the jacks. There we go. He calls all that. He's calling 39%, so he's folding 61%. Maybe this is kind of to go for a bluff, but I do feel like our eights, I think there's better bluffs that we can make. Our ace high would be a better bluff. These like 3s, 4s, 5s would be better bluffs than the 8s. I mean, we still have a little bit of value. It's not a whole lot, but it is just a little bit. So I don't mind checking behind, and we see what the players have. So he had 3-6. Do we have that in his range? Yeah, he basically has all of that weak hand in his range. This guy has ace-5. Did we have that in his range? We did not. So I didn't think he would raise first in, or I should say ISO raise, with ace-5 offsuit, and then he just did not c-bet at all. So we're gonna say he ISO raised 2 big blind in cutoff with ace of diamonds, 5 of spades, and then he's mid position check on a king spades, jack spades, 8 of diamonds, queen of hearts, and 2 of spades. So I won the hand, which is unusual. I say it's unusual to see the players with these weak hands. It just makes me think, if I bet at any point in the hand, would I have gotten a call? And my guess is no. But given the large range of hands, we didn't really know that. I think this guy could have easily have had any of the king, queens, or jacks, and I think that's consistent. If he had a king X, I think he's going to check to the pre-flop raiser. And then on the turn actually got somewhat scary with the queen. I think a lot of players just kind of check call at that point instead of betting. So we didn't have any backup draws. The only draw we had was the gut shot, but we're drawing to the gut shot at the bottom end and straight. And I remember this hand thinking, okay, queen comes out, maybe I should bet. But then I thought, no, because if I bet and get called and a 10 comes out, I lose to any ace. And I think, ace X spades are probably going to be there, and so forth. So it was a rather passive hand, but I managed to win it, and I think I probably played this okay. I don't think it was. If I made a mistake, I don't think it was terribly bad. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this. If you do, look tomorrow for another hand.